Hi everybody. I hope that everyone can hear me okay. Please let me know in the chat if for some reason you can't. So my name is Pippa, and I'm here with my colleague Bethany tonight from Containers for Change, and we work in the community team. So our job is really to work with all the fundraising organisations in the scheme, and PNCs are a huge part of that and have been since the very start. So thanks so much for everything that you do and for your role in the scheme today. Before I get started, I just wanted to do a quick acknowledgement of country. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we're on today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm actually on Binjara country today down in Mandurah where I live. But we are a statewide scheme, so we have operations on the lands of many traditional owner groups, so we pay our respects to them also. Um, I don't need to do too much on this one, so you've already met both of us. Today's session, we are going to go a little bit into the background. I'm glad that some people are really new to the scheme, and then there's some that maybe need some inspiration. And even for those that have been doing it for a while, we've been working hard on lots of new resources. So there's probably some stuff you haven't seen before that we'll be able to share with you. We've got some stories of PNCs already involved, and then we'll run through all this new stuff, how you can get involved, and some good tips for success with Containers for Change. So let's get into it. Just a bit of background. So WA actually uses 13 billion containers every 10 years, which is enough to fill Optus Stadium 3 times. Pretty shocking statistic. And before Containers to Change, only 3 out of 10 containers actually were recycled. So the rest of those were just going straight into landfill. So yeah, huge need there, and also an opportunity in those resources that could be used for something else. We basically Containers for Change. Sorry, there's a little bit of a pause on the slide there. Containers for Change targets so those beverage containers that are commonly littered. So prior to the scheme as well, there was about 40% of the litter that was out in the public was made up of drink containers. Now that's dropped considerably. I think it's around 4% now. So this includes plastic and glass bottles, liquid paperboard, so smaller milk, flavoured milk cartons, steel and aluminium cans. So it's a lot more than just cans. Sometimes people think it is. There's quite a lot involved in there. All of those can be redeemed throughout the state to get a 10-cent refund. And something we're really proud of is that 100% of everything that goes through the scheme is recycled. So it's a really great statistic that we're proud of. And we are part of a national scheme. So there was this recognition that more needed to be done for recycling and resource recovery. So in WA, we're Containers for Change. There's something happening at every state, and a few states have just come on board as well. So Victoria, Tasmania. Oops, sorry. I won't go too much into this, but basically we're coordinators of the WA scheme. There's a lot that's done in schemes, so you'll see all the refund points across the state. There's 268. We support all of those to get set up, all of the recycling and all of the logistics around all of those materials and turn them into other things. That takes a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. Luckily, me and Beth, we just get to work with all our awesome fundraising groups. There's all sorts of other roles that Laurel do as well. So since the scheme started, a little bit of a pause there. We've had 264 refund points across the state. So those are places where you can take the containers for the 10-cent refund. And so we're the most successful container deposit scheme in Australia, actually. There's definitely some gaps in the scheme still that we're always working on to fill, but there's really good coverage in the 2 years since we started. And so now where we're at is that 2.1 billion drink containers have been collected. So since we launched in October 2020, and that means over 7 million of 10-cent refunds has actually also been returned to fundraising organisations, so charities, schools, community groups, PNCs, just like yourself. And PNCs and schools have been a huge part of the scheme. So over 6 million 10-cent containers have been saved from landfill from PNCs and schools to date, which is a huge achievement. So that's over $500,000 in fundraising dollars raised as well. And although we've had really great success with the scheme though, there's still 4 in 10 containers that are going to landfill. So it might seem like all of the fundraising has already been done and, there's already all these people out there doing containers for change. Is there anything left for our organisation to collect? But there's still quite a lot to be done. There's a lot in public spaces, events, shopping centres, all sorts of places that we haven't quite filled those gaps yet. So there's still more to be done and more opportunity as well. And so Bethany, I'm going to hand over to you now if you wanted to just take over from here and you can run through all the reasons why people should get involved.
Yeah, great. Hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Beth. So just putting it into context of what the scheme looks like in your PNC. First of all, starting with why you would do it. So the obvious reason, to raise some funds that are much needed in schools, or maybe for a charity or a cause that your PNC is passionate about. To become a more sustainable school, to reduce the litter, not only in the school, but in the surrounding community, to teach students about waste and recycling and what a circular economy looks like, to develop student leadership skills, especially when you've got your green team or student councils involved, really develops their skills in taking ownership of something like this. Incorporating Containers for Change into your learning areas. So we're working on in future trying to get it more into the curriculum. But in the meantime, feel free to encourage the teachers to use Containers for Change as part of the curriculum when they can. And also another reason is it helps to improve the behaviours in the homes of the WA community, because obviously what kids and everyone learns about, they take home. So yeah, that's the why. So going into some specific examples. So just while it loads, yeah. So we've got Beaconsfield Primary School PNC. So some of the things, so they're one of the top metro PNCs. They've raised $3,000 since they started through the scheme. And some of the ways in which they've done this is the fact that they've partnered with those refund points, like Pippa was speaking about earlier. They're the ones that are on the ground. You might know them as Refund It, Cash for Containers. They're not always called Containers for Change, but we are all the same thing. So partnering them looks like maybe, so reaching out to them, looking up on our website who your nearest refund point is, and then you're able to, depending on what they can offer, strike up a partnership with them so that you're not having to do all the hard yards, basically. So they might be able to give you a bin, so that periodically, and that's what Beaconsfield Primary School PNC have done, once that's full, they give them a call and they come and collect it. And as I say, that just means perhaps shopping around, looking at the nearest ones to you and seeing what each refund point offers, and what specific needs you need to be met by them. Some of the other things Beaconsfield Primary School do is share their member number. So for those that aren't familiar with the scheme, we'll talk a little bit more about what a member number is, but basically it's a membership number that you get when you sign up. So sharing that is an amazing asset, one of the things that Beaconsfield has harnessed, because you can use that member number from everywhere in WA. So it might mean, you've got grandparents that are particularly supportive that live in regional WA. As long as they have that member number for your PNC, they're able to donate their 10-cent containers to your cause. And students, a lot of the students in Beaconsfield, they go home, tell their parents, and they collect at home. And again, using that member number, you just put it on the bag and then take it to your nearest bag drop. The students don't necessarily have to bring it to your school or wherever your PNC meet. So yeah, and then we've got Borden Primary School PNC, just while that one loads. So some of the things they've done to fundraise really well is setting a goal. So they started out with a goal for about $200, I believe, but they overshot that by miles by, in the first 4 months, raising $2,718. Biggest reasons for that being they got a lot of their local businesses involved. So again, that's I think in the next couple slides, we'll show you a letter that we've got made up that's ready-made, ready to give out to local businesses to get them involved. Because to a small business or a cafe or things like that, $10, $20 for a bunch of containers might not mean that much to them. But if they know they're putting it towards a school, and if the school is getting it from perhaps a few cafes in their area, it soon adds up. So again, and they share their member number quite frequently. And it's also one of the best, motivators for students and even volunteers is some kind of incentive. So with students, it might look like, a pizza party or something if they fight against each other, like each classroom against each other, or some students, some schools that maybe are a little bit less resourced could just do like 10 minutes extra playtime, things like that. It's all about incentives, especially in high schools. They really need that motivation there. So getting signed up to begin with, for those that haven't signed up yet, it's all quite self-explanatory if you jump on our website. So obviously you just jump on and click that you're a group and click that you're a school, even though obviously you're a P&C, for most intents and purposes of the resources you'll get and things like that. School is the most fitting one there. And the website's an amazing, we've just had, I think I'm going into it in a little bit, a few more slides there. But the website's just had an overhaul, and there's some, you can add people as captains and you can add members, so that it's not just one person that has the details for that, so that if they leave, perhaps you don't know what your member number is. I would definitely recommend signing up and then getting as many people as you can signed up to it as well, and giving them the login details. So what it looks like sorry if I'm going too fast here, I'll try and slow down. So in context, again, partnering with your refund point is the best way. So if you want to become what we would call a donation point, so that means that anyone from anywhere can come and drop their containers off and put those funds back into your P&C. So that might look like what we call the IBC, which you see on the left here, or it might just be a simple bin. But again, that's something that's a great conversation to have with your refund point, and they are the first port of call for becoming a donation point. So yeah, so just make sure you're connecting with your local refund point, harnessing that. It's quite difficult. Most people are volunteers in P&Cs, so don't always have the time to be lugging containers to drop-off points and things like that. Partnering with your local refund point is a great way to just ease the process when they can come and collect it for you. And as it says here, all refund points offer different services, so it's important to find the best refund point for your needs. And as I say, to find the nearest one to you, just jump on the website, put in the postcode of your P&C or school, and the nearest ones will turn up there. So talking about that member number that I was talking about earlier. So some of the ways that you can disseminate that and get it out there. First of all, putting it on your school newsletter as regularly as you can. And that might not always be a huge section. It might be when you're first starting up, but once you're into it for a while, just making sure you're constantly sharing that member number, and the fact that, like I say, it can be used from anywhere across WA, and students and volunteers don't have to necessarily bring the containers back to you. It can be from anywhere in WA. Making sure you're sharing on Facebook posts that member number. Some P&Cs are really great with giving out cards, that even some that are have the hole in them, so you can just tie it straight onto your bag and put it in a bag drop, and the number's already on there. As I say, reaching out to local businesses. So on the right here is the example of that letter I was talking about, where you'll just fill in the details. So print them off from the link that we'll show you later on, and they can put those aside for you. Giving out bags and information about the scheme. So hopefully, soon we'll be working on some fundraising kits and finding out ways that we can get those green bags out to you. You might have seen them. They're like sacks, like the mesh bags. In the meantime, Australia Post has some, and yeah, we'll be working on that, but there's lots of ways to get them, especially from your refund point might have some bags as well. So making sure you're listed on our charity lookup. So on our website, you'll see that you can search, even if your P&C doesn't necessarily want to give to themselves, they want like a month where they give to a charity, you can look that up. But it's really valuable to make sure that your P&C is listed on there, so that anyone that doesn't know your member number, or they haven't seen it shared recently, can just search your P&C and find your member number. And sharing your progress for inspiration is really good, especially when you've got something specific that the P&C are saving up for. Sharing it on Facebook or in newsletters or in meetings, just showing where you're at with that, what you're saving for, and again, reminding people, the types of containers that are eligible and what's not, and things like that. So speaking of goals, so This is a really great visual tool that we have on our brand folder that you can print off and fill in to show just that visual reminder of what it is you're saving for, how much you're saving, and what that looks like in containers, just to put things in context for people and again have that kind of motivation for something. So something not to be forgotten is events. So whenever you have events coming up, again, that's a really great time to have that really smooth communication with your refund point, because obviously we know at events you're creating a lot more containers and there's a lot of possible wasted volume if you're not organized in advance of how to collect those containers. So it's reaching out to your refund point, letting them know, hey, we've got X, Y, and Z events coming up in the year. This is how many people we're expecting to come, and they may be able to provide you with extra bins. And we do also have an event guide within the brand folder that's just like a complete guide, lots of tips and things that are quite simple, but they can make all the difference in how many containers you can get from an event. So leveraging the power of the brand is really important. We've only been around in WA since October 2020, but since then, these particular shades of green and gold have become quite well known and they're getting more and more. So just make sure whenever you can, you're printing and using those resources that we're trying to get out there, just so that you can, leverage that awareness that people have of the Containers for Change brand. So some more examples of some of the free fundraising resources we have. So you'll see that QR code there in the right-hand corner. Feel free to scan that one. That's when I was talking about a brand folder before. So that's that one there. It will take you to a website where you're able to download all sorts of different posters and printable resources, or just downloadable resources that you can have saved for reference, or perhaps share on your Facebook pages, and all sorts of things like that. Just scan that one, make sure you save the link, and you can access all those resources there. Some examples of which being the fundraising toolkit. So it talks a lot of what we've mentioned today, how to sign up, all those things, and tips and tricks and pieces of information that are really useful to not only get you going, but to help when especially you've perhaps lost momentum and need that restarting. So you see we've got things like certificates to hand out to students as like an incentive to recognize the ones that are doing really well, that donation tracker, the letter. In it as well, there's ones where you can put in like posters where you just type in your member number and print that one off. So lots of really great free resources all on that brand folder there. So we've also got our monthly newsletter, the Changemaker Champions. So that is specifically for community groups and charities. You sign up just on the website, just making sure you tick that you're a school or community group or charity, whichever you'd like to hear more about. And in that you'll find, similar to what we were talking about earlier, what we call case studies. So schools, charities that are doing really well and what it is specifically that they're doing and how they're doing it to collect so much and do so well. There's links to those resources we were talking about and how to use them in context, and also just keeping everyone up to date on what's happening with the scheme at the moment. So make sure you sign up to that one there. So our website, we just recently had a whole website refresh. So there's a lot more resources on there now that can really be handy. So there's a whole 7 easy steps to fundraising, just the start to finish of all things that you can do to increase your fundraising or to get started or spread the word or get in touch with your refund point, all the things that we've been talking about. So feel free to jump on that website there. It's just obviously containersforchange.com.au, Containers for Change WA. And on that, you'll find the member portal. So again, it's really great to get as many people involved on your member portal as you can, because it has lots of really good visual representations of, you can set goals, specific goals of what you're raising money for, and have that shown there. You can set different captains, you can set a couple of captains, because again, certain organizations can be a little bit transient. So we want to make sure we've got as many captains involved as possible. So it's more like a joint leadership and everyone's doing it all at once. And again, there's your member numbers on there too, with the QR code and the barcode that you can share. Yeah, so kind of to sum it all up, the top tips that we have. So again, strong committed champions. So trying to get student councils and green teams or whatever that looks like in the school to take ownership, and not just, the one teacher or the one student, because if they leave, you don't want the whole thing to lose its momentum. Again, getting the teachers on board and trying to get, if it means as well telling the cleaning organization, everyone you can, just get them to know that you're on board, what you're raising money for, and what an eligible 10-cent container looks like. Embedding it in the classroom, again, you'd be surprised at how many different parts of the curriculum that Containers for Change can go into. Obviously science, but you could even do, that we mentioned later, like art, like do an art competition with the students of different posters that you could put around the school rather. You can get canteen on board. You have a lot of schools that do that as an incentive, where a student can, go and collect 5 containers from the playground, bring it in and cash it in for some lollies or something. And just making sure the canteen know what an eligible container looks like, making sure you've got your bins behind there, all sorts of things like that. Again, getting your community and local businesses involved, and MPs even, anyone you can think of. 10 cents to them might not be much, like I was saying, but it soon adds up. And sharing where the money goes. Definitely being transparent is great, and just a great reminder to everyone to know, just to keep saving them at home or whatever that looks like for them. Some more ideas. Yep. So sharing that member number on cards or key tags, tally posters around the school that we mentioned, assembly announcements, even if it's just like a snippet every time. Like, it might not be a whole big spiel about what it is. It might just be like, reminder that you can put your up and goes in there, or reminder that this doesn't go in there, and we've got our Containers for Change bins over there, and we're raising money for this month. Just making sure that it's consistently in there in bite-sized pieces. Those student awards that we've got on the brand folder there, like I said, poster competitions is a great idea too. Certain schools do like collection drives, where maybe you have like a mufti day, and instead of bringing a gold coin, they could bring in a bag of containers, especially for high school or things like that. And as I say, making use of events, because there's definitely some potential in events, and we don't want any of that going to landfill. So yeah, might hand back over to Pip if there's anything I missed there.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. That's that brand folder link again for everyone. There's also been some really great questions come through while you were talking, Beth, so I thought I'll just run through those. Some of it touches on some of the tools that you mentioned, but there's also some other things. So the first one was, how do you discourage teens adding rubbish to the C4C bins? Ironically, I think sometimes adults are worse than teens. I was at an event recently, which was a youth event, and I've never seen so little contamination in the bins. They were all over it. But I get what you mean. Contamination is a big problem, and it can be really draining for volunteers that are trying to do Containers for Change, to find all this other junk in your Containers for Change bin. It is an education piece. The scheme's still very new, so whilst you end up being all over what containers eligible when you're fundraising or doing it yourself, others aren't yet. So really clear signage is important. So make use of all of our resources, stick them all over the place to try to identify. Also, bin placement is a big thing. So if you put the bin on its own somewhere, it tends to get more rubbish put in it. If people are lazy and will walk past and just pop it in. If there's 2 bins next to each other, a general waste bin and your Containers for Change, people tend to make the choice more. You have to make it simple for them. And I think our website has an eligibility tool where you can look up containers with the barcode, get information that we have about the containers that are eligible for that, and share it widely. So another thing we've seen well in schools is that they have a student committee. It might be their eco committee or a student council group, and they'll take turns on a lunch roster to actually check stand-up bins and monitor them. We like to call them bin fairies. And it's a good learning tool for young people when there's other kids there pointing it out. Another question that I saw was sorry, there was one back up there. So about bins, about containers being stolen. It not such a most schools I think tend to have them in a locked up area. They don't leave them out for that reason, and it happens often at events and things. So yeah, they do need to be put away in a safe area when the school's not open. We are looking at some more permanent infrastructure to sit outside school grounds, but obviously there's a lot of things that have to come into play and department permission and things like that from the school to do that. But they're a bit more like a second-hand clothing bin, so people actually can't get in those. So we work on that. In the meantime, try to keep bins in a locked area in the evenings, and that makes a big difference. The other one, if our school administration has signed up and has a member number, can the school's P&C also sign up? You definitely can. Probably the best result would be to do it together, because you're going to have two different member numbers floating around for the school. It's really a decision for you and the school. We put P&Cs and schools together in all of our data and things because you could find two schools running it in the exact same way, and one set up the account under the P&C and one the school. So there's lots of different ways to do it. It depends on the school situation, but yes, you can if you wish to set up another account. You could also, if they wish to, have access to the same account and be using it together. So if our C4C money is dedicated to the P&C purchasing food, the P&C purchasing food to supplement what Food Bank provides a school breakfast club run by the student services staff. Okay, that's great. So you're actually doing containers for change to supplement food. That's really great and really cool to hear. And yeah, that's a really wonderful use of those funds. We've got a bit of a partnership with Food Bank as well, and they have some of our bins at some of the sites across WA, so that's brilliant. And another question I see here. We are a very small town with a return depot in Central Point within our town. Have you any ideas for encouraging people to donate to the P&C rather than for families to get refunds? Yeah, so it's something I've heard of this a bit, I think. So schools early on were like going great guns and P&Cs with their fundraising, and then the kids started doing it at home for pocket money, or the parents started doing it. It's not a bad thing overall, that's still a great impact. But yeah, it doesn't help when you're trying to raise funds for, the Christmas event or whatever. So I find doing a container drive or something that's good. So having a particular day, and then the incentives. So as Beth said before, incentivizing those students in some way. You bring that in and you get icy poles at the end, or there might be a class party or whatnot. It can really make a big difference. But yes, there are also lots of students that are doing it at home now for pocket money. Definitely some of the top P&Cs, all the top P&Cs that I know of have, great, they reach out to businesses to get support too. So you can get really significant volume of beverage containers in a couple of businesses. And if they start donating them to you, which a lot are more than happy to, it really makes a big impact on your fundraising. And is there any more questions there? The brand new school and a new P&C, you're starting from scratch. Is there a cost to get the bins? There's not a cost to get the bins. Generally, the refund points will supply the bins. But one of the things with our network is the refund points are kind of diverse. So they're contracted to us, but they're all different organisations. So they don't all offer the same things. So if you're Metro, I kind of always say these days, because a lot of the services have changed and they're expanding what they do, look up the top three closest to you. It doesn't have to be the closest. It might be further, but they still service you. Give them a call and find out what they can offer you. Generally, they'll supply bins and they may do a pickup service as well. Regional's a little bit different and you can't always get bins. But we are doing, as Beth said earlier, some kits soon. So we'll be able to get a bin and some bags and some resources out to all the schools. So if you haven't been able to get one through the refund point, that'll be a good opportunity to get a nice shiny green and white one from us.
We have another question here from Kylie.
Yes. Yeah.
Before that one, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course, Jen.
How clean do the containers have to be?
That's a good question. Not that plain, to be honest. Like as long as you tip the contents out and then you pop it into the thing, you always have to take the lids off. So the lids can go in with the containers now, because we actually have a recycler for the lids in WA. We're the only state that does that, but they do have to be taken off of the containers. But yeah, cleanliness, not so much. The only thing I think that sometimes is something to consider with schools is the small flavoured milk cartons. I think just they can get smelly. So if you're not having really high volumes of containers and really regular pickups, you might want to encourage students to give those a little bit of a rinse to ensure that they're not full of awful milk. Yeah. And Kylie, I can see that question there. So you have containers for change set up at school. Treasurer can see the funds going into the PNC account. So you can't find out how. So it seems this has happened a little bit. So it might have been that somebody set it up way at the start, or maybe it was 6 months ago, and perhaps they've now moved on from the PNC. And you may still be using your member number, and when containers are taken in, you get a transaction from the refund point, and you can see it in the bank statement. But you can't log in to your account. So if that's the case, I'll just hop onto this. I think we have our last slide here with our email. Oh, sorry, I actually put it back on that one earlier. So under my photo here on the slide, if you just see that get involved at royal.com.au email. So really all of you from PNC, you can reach out to us at that email about anything. But that one in particular, yeah, reach out to us and we can at least find out what the email is for your account, who it's set up by. If it's someone that's already still involved, great, you can just get them to log in and they can do a password reset and then add you to the account. If for some reason that's not possible and that person's moved on, we can do something else and reset that and have a new email contact added to the account. But yes, it does happen, and that's why we encourage now to add multiple captains to your account, so there's always an active admin on there.
That's another question from Bev there.
Yeah, Bev, do the local businesses have to go to drop off at a refund point and then give a member number, or do you collect? Little bit of both, depends on what's the best option. So I know of a school that started near me, and they quickly went and approached the local cafe and said, look, would you be happy to? And I think for about a couple of months she was going there and picking up, and then she realised this is a lot of containers, so she was able to organise a pickup from the refund point, and they I think they might have taken 2 cents from the 10, and then the rest of it, just when it gets taken and counted at the refund point, it goes straight into the school's member number account. So you can have an arrangement with a commercial entity and you still get the fundraising amount, and that's totally fine. Likewise, you might collect them from there yourself. Sometimes that's, to get it going, that's what you might need to do. Other times they're just happy to take them in themselves and then it gets put into your member number account. But certainly when it's high volume, try to get a refund point involved. And that's not always possible, especially if you're regional. And we're working really hard to encourage refund points to support schools better. So we're celebrating the ones that do a great job supporting schools and PNCs and community groups. And we're giving them all the same resources and kits and things so that they can support those organisations better too.
And another question from Michelle.
Michelle, these are really great questions, by the way. Thank you. No, they're excellent.
You switched on.
Yes, you obviously know what you're doing. Can future live things be designed so a padlock and chain can be put on them? Yeah, so we do actually have sourced some locks for bins, and then a padlock fits on them. They are available in our online store. So we've encouraged the refund points to start using those on the bins. Some of them have, and they use them on all the bins, and some don't, or they'll just use them on event ones. We can certainly, you could buy those yourself, or we can look at perhaps putting those into some of the kits. The other thing I've seen people do, if it's your own bin, you can do what you want with it, or even if it's a refund point bin, maybe just ask them. I've seen some people use like put a little hole in it and do like a cable tie type thing on it. Yeah, because it can make it a big difference.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
And just to clarify, the online store is the Worrell one, so the WA Return, Recycle, Renew on that website.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I should have said that. So generally that is for our refund points, but we do have some of our community items on it now. And yeah, when there is needs for some extra infrastructure things and that, we can support that. But generally we try to direct community groups, schools, PNCs to the free brand folder resources or the free kits that we've got coming up soon. I would encourage you all as well, if you haven't already, if you're not already receiving our Changemaker Champions e-newsletter that Beth mentioned, go on the website and sign up to that. If you have trouble finding it, just email us. That's where we really launch like new things that are coming out, and we'll be launching the free kits in that as well. Currently, it just goes to all the existing registered groups. So again, if your email isn't on the contact list, it might be going to somebody else, but you can certainly go on the website and sign up so you don't miss out any future issues of that.
We do have a couple of people typing at the moment. You can probably
Okay,
see that
no
down the
problem.
bottom of the screen, so that will come up.
I have a tickle in my throat. Okay.
And there's a question there from Kira.
The Changemaker Champions, does it come from a Worrell email account, you mean? I think it is a Containers for Change. That's our MailChimp. So I'm pretty sure that should be from a Containers for Change one. But yeah, it's a little bit confusing, I guess, because we are Worrell and we are also Containers for Change. So Worrell are the scheme coordinators and we coordinate the scheme under our Containers for Change brand. So a little bit confusing it can be, but both of those things are us. So if you see anything come through your email and it has either of those brands on it, it is us, I promise.
Yeah. And as well with the newsletter, if your PNC is doing anything, if you're doing well or you've just started up, you've got some ideas to share, please feel free to send them through to that Get Involved at Worrell, and we'd love to be able to feature you on the newsletters coming up as well.
Someone just asked a question about the collection point only has a bag drop. So sometimes, particularly in regional areas, their main hub may be somewhere probably quite far from you, but then they have bag drop locations that are a little bit further around. So it doesn't mean that you can't. They may still be willing to supply you bins. You just have to give them a call and then see what they'll offer you. But yeah, bins is certainly isn't the be all and end all as well. We've certainly seen some of our biggest PNCs in schools are in regional areas and they use like the big IBC liquid bladders with the top section cut out. And they just, they work around it and are having really great success with them. Thanks, Beth. There you go, example. So yeah, there's definitely other things you can do. And also, with those kits that we get out, we may be able to help you with that as well. So if you get stuck, and please reach out to the Get Involved email channel and see if we can help you.
I'll say my local collection area is a waste disposal site, and it is just so quick to go through there. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. It varies. It's a diverse network, so they're all very different, and which is great. And Metro, we've got loads of options now, and then regional, most places we've got covered, but there is definitely some gaps, but we're working to fill them. So always keep asking what they'll do for you, and and you might find that there's something offered now that wasn't a few months back. So it's worth going back and having that conversation again.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, I don't think we do. There's nobody typing at the moment. All right, so we may wrap up, Bethany and Pippa. People online, if you would like to say thank you for Pippa and Bethany for tonight, that would be much appreciated. This is going to go onto YouTube, of course, once I've edited it and edited the slides, which had some errors in them. And if Bethany and Pippa would like to finish up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And yeah, it's a pleasure. We love working with BATSO, and yeah, really enjoy all the PNCs involved in the scheme too. We know that you are some of our earliest adopters, so please reach out if we can help you in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. And there is a feedback form that will pop up once you close this screen down. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Bethany and Pippa.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.